Hello everyone, greetings for the day and welcome to our learning journey. This is Divya and you are watching Trend Brand. In today's topic, we are going to be talking about reading made easy. There are many students who are actually struggling to read in our classes. So before we get started with that, let me introduce myself. So my name is Divya. I'm a mother of two boys and a teacher. If your child or student in your class is struggling to read, I can help you. So don't teach by the sight word methodology. And in case if you're following the whole approach or the sight word methodology to teach reading for your children in your classes or at your home, I would request you to stop that now. I will teach you a very simple and easy method which will help your child to read easily and at the same time they become fast and fluent leaders. Now, if you notice any child who is reading early, many of the times we think that he or she must be a smart child, right? So you may also ask yourself, do smart kids learn early or learning to read early makes the children smarter? So we would be able to address all of these questions in today's session. So if you can start teaching, or you can I can help you, wherein you can start teaching children of 2 and 3 years old to read and you can show incredible results. All we need to do is use a good teaching methodology to introduce reading as early as possible. You don't have to wait until like your child gets into schooling. You can use this particular methodology to help your child to become a super reader and help them to read easily. So what you need to be working more is the more you start reading to your child, the more smarter your child becomes. And teaching using sight word methodology can sometimes lead to serious learning difficulties. So we don't use this sight word methodology. The question is, what is sight word? You give a word to a child, the child starts to memorize that. Say, for example, in case if I have a word like CAT cat, you will be teaching like CAT cat, CAT cat, CAT cat, MAT mat, RAT rat. So never introduce a word through a sight. Okay, through sight, do not use that because that leads to memorization and that would lead to serious difficulties when they would have to be reading. So we generally use sight word methods only for certain words which cannot be decoded. Now what is decoding? Decoding is like you have a word and you will be able to break that word into small pieces or individual letters or individual sounds. So we call this entire process as syllabication. So if you're not able to syllabicate, if you're not able to decode a word into different sounds, only then you would use this sight word methodology. And hence, we will also not encourage our children to memorize the words. Okay. So let me tell you this. This is not the way that you will be working with children in your classes or at home. So whenever you want to help your child to read better, you use a different methodology altogether. Okay. Now, if you have a child who has reading difficulties, it's not your child's fault. Neither it is not the fault of a parent. It is because of the teaching methodology, how it is being taught, how the children are introduced to reading. Okay. Many times, what we generally use is like we use the whole language approach and the sight word approach to introduce reading to children. So we got to change this particular methodology. So when we teach by sight words, the child will memorize, as I said, just by looking at the shapes of those letters. Say, for example, CAT cat, CAR car, CAK cake, BRN barn, BURN burn, BORN barn. Born, right? So sometimes when I ask or when I give dictation like barn, since most of the words like barn, burn, born, they look similar, the child will just guess the pattern. The child will just have to guess the letter or the word formations, and then the child will be able to read it, right? So guessing becomes really difficult in this particular methodology, and most of the times we see the children are guessing the words instead of actual reading. That is where they go wrong, and that is how they jumble up, and that is how they jump from one word to another, and they start reading abruptly whatever comes up to their mind because they are not aware about the phonetic sounds which is associated with every letter. So then what we need to be working is like we avoid teaching sight words, we avoid teaching memorization, we don't even give them the whole word approach. Then what do we do and how do we start? So what you can do is like if you have a child who is struggling to read, I would request you to make a quick assessment. Get to understand, is the child able to know the letter name? Is the child able to understand the letter sound? You give the least importance to the names of the letter there. Okay, then you focus only on the letter sound. Every letter will have a letter sound. We call it as a phoneme, right? A letter sound is called a phoneme, and every letter will have a particular pattern of representation. John, we call it as a graphical representation. That becomes your grapheme. It's the symbol of that particular letter. So you make an assessment, get an understanding. Does the child know the letter sound? Does the child know how to write that letter? If this is there, good enough. In case if your child does not know this, there's nothing to worry about. Okay, so if you follow this methodology, within, I can say, within 12 weeks of time, most of the children will be able to read it if you're using this particular program very effectively. Do you think there's some magic behind this teaching methodology? Or you might ask me, like, what is this magic, Divya? How are you going to be doing? It is very, very simple, and most of us know about it. And in case if you do not know of this particular methodology, I would request everybody to follow phonetic way of teaching to children, because the two pillars of learning phonic reading is with an incredible combination of synthetic phonics and the phonemic awareness development. When you're using both of that, instead of making your child memorize hundreds and thousands of words, we just have to only be teaching 44 sounds of English. Isn't that great? Now you make a choice. You want to help your child memorize hundreds or thousands of words, or you just will teach them 44 sounds, and then your child will be able to decode and encode the words and is able to read and write. What is your choice? Let me know on that. So 44 sounds work good enough? So should we go with the 44 sounds? Yes, I know everybody would agree. This sounds very, very nice. It's not crazy at all. Very simple. 44 sounds of English. And we start working on one simple method. Okay. And we will teach the child not to memorize, but we use a technique of decoding a particular word. And we will also help the child after decoding how to connect all those sounds to make a particular word. Now, say for example, if I have a word car. So what is decoding? I will break that word into multiple pieces. So C is one, A is one, R is one. I would not be representing by the letter name. Rather, I would go by the letter sound. K, A, R, car. Okay, so I decoded that word into three sounds, right? So those are the three individual phonemes. So what are my phonemes? K, A, R. That is my phoneme. So I help the child to break up a particular word into sounds. The child will have to now be able to see every word as individual pieces of sounds. Okay, now let me share another simple tip. To do this, hearing is also important, right? So learning to hear is also the first step towards learning to read. So you have to help your child to listen carefully. When the teacher is saying the word car, 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 they have to give importance to listening to every letter sound that is actually making up a word. So that's important. So you can make this as a thumb rule. Children, listen. Keep your listening ears on. Okay, we're going to read. Keep your listening ears on. You can also be a little bit more dramatic. You can say, like, let's switch on our here and let's hear whatever I'm trying to say. That's the first important step that we do. And now we got an understanding that we just have to learn 44 sounds. Now let's make it even more simpler. Now this 42 sounds, we will classify them into 7 groups. We classify them into 7 groups, and these are the 42 sounds that you're going to be teaching. So you can choose every week one group to your child. Say first week I take up this. Okay, we call this as SATIPN. So we sometimes call it as SATPIN or SATPIN. Okay, so we have to now learn the sounds. So we have 6 letters in our group one. The first sound is S, second sound is A, third one is T, then E, S, A, T, E, So these are the 6 letter sounds of SATIPN. The sound of the letter S, not S. S. Sound of letter A. Sound of letter T. Sound of letter I. Sound of letter P. Sound of letter N. Once the child is understanding about the sounds with the gestures for every little sound, it becomes easy for me to blend. Now I will make combinations with these 6 letters and see how many words that we will be able to make it up. Now, say for example, if I'm taking the sound and the t sound from those 2 letters, it's t, t, t. I get them closer and closer and I say at, at. So the child learned at. Now bring another letter there. So I bring the letter sound s, s, at, s, at, s, at, sat. Then it, eat, eat. Then again I bring another s, eat, eat, sit, sit, sit. So that's how you would introduce many words. Now, when you're making up this particular combination, you will be amazed to see children will start making up words. The sounds, sometimes it's very essential. The sound awareness is very important to your child. And then the child will start making all the possible combinations. Give them an opportunity. Give them the teaching strategy of how to blend 2 letters, 3 letters to make up sensical words, nonsensical words, anything is okay, but the child should be able to make up a word and they have to be able to tell that. Now you can group them, you can have in your class, in your file folder, you give them and make it a habit to read it together. Sit, per and if the child is not able to read it thoroughly, now you have to make sure that the child is looking at every word, and every word should be comprised with every letter sound, right? So they should not be saying sit. They have to learn it like eat, sit, pan. They got to read that in their mind, and then you're going to be having group 1 words, and you can share this to your parent community also, wherein the parent would also do the same exercise at home. Now, week 1, you are thorough with 6 letter sounds and more than 15 to 20 words. Isn't that amazing? You did not wait to introduce all the letters, all the sounds, all the words did not come up. Rather, we focused only on 6 letter sounds and so many words out of that. That becomes really good enough for our students to work with. And week 1, I'm very sure that most of the children do pick it up and they learn it, because every time I give a word, I also ask them to say the gesture. For example, in case if I give them the word sat, so I would also ask them to do it with action. Sat is the word. Then the child says at. Then if I give a word pan, ah, if I give a word tip, t, e, if I give the word tap, t, ah, if I give the word nap, ah. Okay, so that has to be with the actions. So your child will learn the words with very, very interesting way. Okay, so this was our group 1. We do similarly with our group 2. We do similarly with our group 3, group 4, group 5, group 6, and group 7. If you would like to know what are these group sounds, go to the other links of mine. So we have amazing phonics sessions happening every month. So you could enroll, you could register, you could go through my videos on that particular phonetic lessons, or if you have any clarifications, you can come back to me. Now, once your children have learned all these 44 sounds, now you introduce the methods of blending. Now, say for example, now you bring on to more, what I could say is like the rules. Now, say for example, I have the letters K, and K has the k sound. C also has the k sound. So then you would introduce the rules of which letter sound that I have to be using. And we also notice that there are 2 vowels in this word, like I and E are vowels. So that's when you would introduce, when there are 2 vowels in a word, the first vowel does the talking and the second vowel is quiet. So you could work on this, or you could always say whenever there is a magically, at the end of the word, the first vowel takes the precedence and the sound of that vowel is going to be a long vowel. I also forgot to inform that every vowel will have 2 sounds, a short vowel, a long vowel. Short vowels are e, I, a. The long vowels are the names of the vowels itself. A, E, I, O, U. So every vowel has two sounds, a short vowel and a long vowel. Now in this, I, E combination will become a long vowel and that will be sounded as I. So when we are blending, we blend it as K, I, T, and E becomes quiet there. So these would be some of the rules we slowly introduce children after they have mastered the 44 sounds. And some of the rules are also there in our combinations when we are learning our group 5. We learn about the long vowel IE there. So all those things will be notified in our rules. And slowly now you introduce blending. You can now introduce shorter lessons at cat, the cat, and the child will be able to make more lessons. So creating simple lessons which will support the reiteration of the sounds, whatever you have learned every single day with pictures would enable interest for your child to read. You may also create some audio clips of these sounds, send it home so that the child is listening to it and they would be able to work on the sounds. They would also become very, very stronger in the phonetic awareness too. And then you slowly start to introduce the sight words, which are high frequency words which keep reappearing in your story sequences. Now, this is what you would introduce at the later stages after you introduce 44 sounds to your children. And always remember the words which cannot be decoded, the words which cannot be cut. Instead of cut word, I could say, which cannot be decoded into individual phonemes. Only such words you will introduce with the sight memory. So you ask the child to memorize that. I don't say the y as they, right? So we do not want to break that. So then you can slowly introduce these sight words into your reading lessons. And always, every day in your reading lessons, you need to keep reinforcing the 44 sounds every single day. And this is what is going to help your child to decode and blend the words as they would be reading. There are certain examples over here. Taking a word jack, it has three syllables. So I can divide them or I could decode them into three sounds. J, a, k. Why is it not k, k? Because whenever there is k sound at the end, since both C and K have the same sounds, k, we got to read them only once. K. J, a, k, jack. Jen. J, a, jen. March. R, ch, march. Jacket. J, a, k, a, t, jacket. So that's how you would introduce blending to children and helping them to decode the words. Now, this process is called syllabification. Once the teacher introduces this methodology, your child is all good to go. So remember, 44 sounds of English is really going to help you with some phonic rules which will make your child decode and encode, and it will help them to read better. Talk to your child's parent on what is your methodology, how you would like to initiate, when you're going to be starting. When you've decided that your child is struggling to read, then it's time to start right away. I could say it is time to start right now. So make your planning and happy reading with your student or with your child. I'll see you soon. Until I meet you for the next class, it's bye from Divya. Have a great learning.